All right, let's get started. Let's start with Chopping Mall because I feel like out of the three, that was the one that was the most shocking.
Because it was so awesome.
Yes, Jude. Why don't you? Jude, why don't you tell us about Chopping Mall and why you picked this movie?
So my first experience with this movie was at a sleepover slumber party, and somebody brought a VHS tape of it to a sleepover, and we just were teenage, maybe or like preteens, just losing our minds over
I can see that.
how awesome this movie was. And just remembered it being like killer robots loose in a mall killing teenagers.
Very 80s.
Yeah, it's very 80s. I will admit I have watched this movie a lot. I love Kelly Maroney. I follow her on Instagram.
Oh, really?
She's a scream queen. I love all of her movies. I love, what's her name? Barbara. She was the other main actress in it. She's the other very popular scream queen from the 80s. And I don't know. I just
Barbara
love
Crampton.
Crampton. Thank you. I kept wanting to say Cranston. Yeah, this is a genre that I love. I love cheesy, awesomely bad 80s horror movies. This is just the exact movie that is right up my alley. So basically, a bunch of, it's unclear if they're teens or early adults, decide to have a party in a furniture store in a mall. And these robots are the new security team of the mall, and a lightning storm hits the robot hub and turns the robots into homicidal maniacs.
I love the premise already.
Yeah.
And just things happen after that. Like so the robots start taking over.
Things happen.
Things happen.
And that's all you need to know.
How many were there? How many teenagers were there? It was a pretty sizable group to start with.
Six, I want to say.
Six of them?
Yeah,
And they were
six couples.
coupled off. And they were,
which is also how they died.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. They died by couples.
Yeah. The second death was the one that got my attention the most.
Is that the head exploding one?
Yes.
Yes.
I was watching.
That's the best one.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, the chick being on fire for like 5 minutes. Just that was
In her,
I'm on fire. Yeah.
Hey man, that was legit stunt work. Okay.
and her obviously male stunt double.
Yes. It's like doubled in size. That's fantastic.
Awesome.
Anyway, so like I was watching this movie and right away you kind of know what to expect because it's very 80s. Obviously, the mall setting, that's like 80s.
Yeah.
It was
100%.
super low budget 80s.
The
Yes.
same mall in every California 80s movie.
Yeah. And the setup for these robots were those I guess it was the mall, the owners of the mall, or the store owners.
That was my favorite part of the movie.
Was the little presentation
with the two people being smartasses in the audience.
Yeah, that was
When
pretty.
they- yeah,
it was pretty bad though.
And that woman was also in Night at the Comet.
Was she?
Yeah.
Oh, she was the mom.
No, she was the scientist that like killed herself because she didn't want to kill the teenagers.
Okay, never mind.
Well, that was also a little cameo. Like that whole opening scene there had cameos from other Roger Corman movies, characters from other Roger Corman movies, and that couple basically their names was the Blands, husband and wife team, and they were the stars of this Roger Corman movie called Eating Raoul.
That's right.
And they at the end of that movie, they basically open up a restaurant, and it was implied that their restaurant was now in the mall, and so like they made this little cameo appearance as the characters from that movie. Like this movie has a lot of Roger Corman references in it simply because it was produced by Roger Corman. But like if you look at the restaurant that the waitresses, that the girls worked in, all the posters are of Roger Corman movies. Was it Night of the Crab People, which was the movie they were watching?
Attack of the Crab People.
Attack of the Crab People. That was a Roger Corman
We actually have
movie.
that poster on our wall right there.
Yeah. So, like, if you're familiar with who Roger Corman is and like his movies, Chopping Mall is kind of like a much more interesting film than it is just as a piece of entertainment.
I don't know. I found it pretty interesting.
When I was in film school, I read his autobiography. Roger Corman has this autobiography he wrote called "How I Made 100 Movies in Hollywood and Never Lost a Penny," and he was kind of like the guy who, he never cared about the quality of his films. All he cared about was hitting genre tropes and making money. And so,
that makes sense.
So, his rules for making movies were like, it must have sex, nudity, violence, and gore. And if it doesn't have any of those things, it must be made for enough money where it's going to make a big profit. So he was kind of the king of drive-in cinema, where he would just make these really schlocky, bad B movies that were just made to go to the drive-ins for the double features and stuff. And when the drive-in industry started dying, he was kind of the one who pioneered the direct-to-video movies.
I can see that.
But the interesting thing about Corman was that because he didn't care, he was able to give major filmmakers their big break. Francis Ford Coppola was a Corman protege, and they kind of had this thing called the Corman School of Filmmaking, where basically, if somebody wanted to make a movie, Corman could be like, okay, here's $100,000, go make your movie. And then they'd go and they'd be able to show what they could do. And a lot of people, basically their careers got launched because Roger Corman took a chance on them. And it was kind of a big deal. And this movie, the director of it, his name's Jim Wynorski. And he's interesting because he was a film school dropout. And he met someone on a plane ride who knew Roger Corman. And they kind of set up an introduction for him to meet Roger Corman, and he was like, "Yeah, I'd like to direct a movie," or no, he was like, "I'd like to write a movie for you." And Roger Corman was like, "Okay, can you do it for free?" And he was like, "Sure." So he kind of started working for Roger Corman for slave wages, and then Roger Corman's wife wanted to try her hand at producing a movie, and the movie was going to eventually become Chopping Mall. And so this Jim Wynorski was kind of on staff. He had already directed a really low budget film. And she went to him and she's like, "Can you write this movie for me? It's got to be about kids who, are in a mall and they're getting slaughtered." and he was like, "I'll tell you what, I'll write it if I can direct it." And he's like, "I'll write it for free if I can direct it." And so that's how he got on the movie. And it's kind of funny because Jim Wynorski, he's gone on to kind of be the king of erotic parodies. He
Explain.
He wrote, produced, and directed movies like The Blair Witch Project, the Witches of Breastwick, the Da Vinci Co-ed.
I did
the Breastford Wives.
when I was watching this, I did feel
Cleavage
like
Field.
a lot of the dialogue between the couples felt like really bad porn dialogue. That makes total sense now.
The couple the first couple that dies when she needs a cigarette and she's
Yeah.
like, "By the way," and he's like, "What?" She just shows her tits.
Shows her tits
And
off,
she's
and then he's like,
"Hurry back," and he
be
loses his mind after. I was like, "Bro, you just saw her tits a minute ago. Are you that blown away by them again?"
They were that good. This is very 80s tits
Yeah.
too. This is
Very 80s
very
tits.
80s tits.
Yeah.
Natural.
And it's funny because that couple, those two actors, 90% of their dialogue was ad-libbed, I think.
Really?
Just those two.
And speaking of Corman, don't forget Walter Paisley, the cameo by Dick Miller.
Oh yeah, the Dick Miller, the janitor guy who gets electrocuted. He was playing.
You might know him from The Gremlins.
Yes, he was playing his character from another Roger Corman movie called Bucket of Blood, which was shot, I think, in one day or something. And it was a movie by Roger Corman, and his character in that was this janitor who helped an artist to kill people and then sculpt clay over their dead bodies to make them look like statues.
Wow.
And the art world would go crazy over these statues and
They're so lifelike.
yeah, exactly. So and they also had a cameo from the guy from Phantasm movies in there, but it was like a very small cameo. Like if you blink, you miss it. I forget his name, but he played the tall man in the Phantasm films. But it's kind of funny because this movie, so it was shot at the Galleria Mall, which is this mall in the Valley area, and it was the mall of the 80s.
Back in Hollywood.
Because the owner of the Sherman Oaks Galleria Mall was a big movie fan, so he just made his mall the most affordable option to shoot in the mall. And this mall has appeared in so many movies, like Terminator 2, that was a mall in that movie.
Night of the Comet.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Night of the Comet. And
I think this was also the mall in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie also.
Probably. But it's funny because the exterior shots of this mall are actually of the 3rd Street Mall, which is in Hollywood proper. And I used to go to that mall all the time, and I'd be like, but the inside doesn't look like that. And it turns out that originally they were supposed to shoot at the 3rd Street Mall, but they wanted too much money. So they went to the Sherman Oaks Galleria Mall to shoot this movie.
So let's talk about two things, and I'll let Vader start because he hasn't talked in a minute. Let's talk about the robots in this movie, because that's the whole reason why this movie got picked, was because it had to do with robots. So what did you think about what were they? Did they have a name? What was the name of the robot? Killbots. That's what their actual name was from the presentation at the beginning of the movie?
That's what they were.
Suckbots.
They are the security team.
The security team for this mall. What did you think about the robots' design?
I thought they were atrocious. But no, I don't know. I didn't know what to expect going into this movie. I didn't even know what it was about. Never really. I mean, I'd heard of it, but I never watched it. But the second this movie started, I'm like,
shit.
What is going on here? What is happening? It's like, and then they're doing the whole presentation, and I'm just thinking RoboCop going through my head, and these things are like little miniature Psycho Ed 209s, right? It's like
that's pretty much what they are.
That's pretty much what they are.
And I don't know. It was just funny how they did their thing. It's like they're just chasing people down with their little tank tracks, and they're just like I'm seeing these guys. All I'm picturing in my head is guys with remote controls controlling these guys going through the mall. They're probably having a blast. They probably had the best time of the whole movie making these things, and it's just. And the effects are terrible. The laser beams out of the eyes.
Oh my god!
And the head exploding and stuff.
I like how there are these military grade robots patrolling for a mall.
Yeah. Put down the candy bar. You have 5 seconds to comply. That's what I'm seeing in my head.
Explosives, and lasers,
laser beams,
and like an indestructible chassis.
Oh my gosh!
And
dude.
like the guys in the booth, like the security guys, are wearing like doctors' lab coats.
Yeah.
Like they're scientists.
Because every bad guy in 80s movies.
Like, and and the lightning strike, instantly made them intelligent. They're like they're sentient beings now.
Yeah.
And
so like to the point where like it's like, oh, I'm gonna launch this thing out of my chest and miss the guy on purpose so I can light it on fire and with my electrical charge.
And
the gasoline.
did you guys like clock how they hid all the bodies after they killed people?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Pick them up.
What did they do with them?
They probably ate them. I don't know.
I was like, are they turning them into more robots?
I thought it was kind of funny when they were in the control room, kind of towards the start of the movie, right after they got electrocuted, and the light comes on, and the guy's in the one head, and the guy turns around, and the light goes dark.
Sneaky.
Then he turns around and looks at the other robot. It's like they're talking to each other. The guy like turns around, it's silent. It's like a cartoon.
That was my favorite part, when the robot physically turns his head around to like eyeball the other robot.
Wink,
like,
wink.
yeah, exactly. Like wink, wink.
Yeah, I'm gonna screw this guy up. And then bam, shot to the back of the neck.
Watch me kill this guy. It's gonna be hilarious.
And it's funny because every time after the robots kill someone, they're always like, "Have a nice day."
That's their line. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's such a weird movie.
Campy and schlocky. I mean, I will give it that much. That I can appreciate.
It's everything I want in a movie.
I mean,
Vader, I think it would rate higher on your list because it has everything you
it
require
does.
from a movie.
But it's
had
just so
boobs.
bad.
It had violence. It had,
it's like I have several images that go through my head now that I've seen this movie, and one of them is Kelly Maroney running through the mall like she's a track athlete, and that scene where she's hanging off the
Oh, yeah, from the balcony.
rail. It's like, oh God, I'm gonna slip, and it's just, I don't know. It's just this movie.
It was so goofy. I don't know what else to say about it.
Maybe if I had seen this movie like I should have seen it when I was 16, when it was made.
Oh, you would have been thrilled.
If I had seen it at the drive-in that we used to go to with, a cooler of smuggled in Coors Light, was we used to drink in high school, I probably would have had much better memories of this kind of a movie, but it just wasn't ever my thing.
This is a perfect drive-in movie.
So this movie did not do well in the theaters. It was originally released under the title of Killbots. And
that's where you got that.
well, I mean, like that's what they called it. And they referred to the robots as they were making them as Killbots. So Roger Corman, like, he wasn't happy with the amount of money it made at the theater. So he's like, all right, we got to cut like 16 minutes out of this movie, and then we got to re-release it on home video under a different name.
Oh, no.
And the name has to be like, something that makes it clear that it's a horror movie. And as he's having this meeting with Jim Wynorski and the other guys, there's this janitor in the corner who's like, mopping up in their studio. And he's like, hey, why don't you call it Chopping Mall? And they're like, what? And he's like, well, it takes place in a mall, right? Call it Chopping Mall instead of Shopping Mall. And they're like, you know what?
That's genius.
That works.
What 15 minutes did they take out?
I don't know. Was
it more sex?
I doubt it. But, the funny thing about this is that, like, at no point in this movie does anyone ever get chopped.
Yeah.
Right.
What do we got? People got exploded, like laser bolts to the head.
Yeah.
People got shot. People got strangled with a robotic arm.
And that head exploding thing, like at the end when they're going through the cast, like that's the freeze frame that they show for that actor.
I love that.
They re-released the movie as Chopping Mall on home video, and that's where this movie kind of blew up into a cult classic.
Is it a cult classic?
It is, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Really?
I think most Corman movies are. They have their.
Yeah, but this one...
They have their audience. As I point towards Jude. Yes.
This one really found its life on home video, and it was actually very profitable once they changed the name and released it to VHS.
Huh.
Still making money. Got 4 clicks this week.
Yeah, it did.
Right.
Well, it was on Amazon Prime, so...
There's also a kind of funny Me Too.
I'm so glad I didn't have to rent this movie.
You'd have been pissed.
I also I found a funny story by Jim Wynorski, the director of this, who originally they had a different actress cast in the Kelly Maroney role, and that actress ended up dropping out, and he really wanted to date Kelly Maroney. So he was like, I'm going to cast her in this movie so I can try and date her.
There you go.
And that was like his whole motivation for casting.
That is inappropriate.
Yeah. It's very Me Too-ish, but it was the 80s.
It's the 80s. It's a different time. All right. So final thoughts on Jude's pick for...
What's your favorite part? Everybody go around the table and tell me your favorite part of this movie.
My favorite part of this movie has got to be the Second Amendment store in the mall. That is just loaded to the gills.
Peck and Paws?
With freaking like military grade shit.
Yeah, like M16.
M16, like everything you
Automatic
could possibly think of as far as weapons go.
And propane.
Do you know how to use that thing? Hell yeah, dude. I saw Dirty Harry like 17 times. Like, that was my favorite part of the movie.
And also, did you catch that Kelly Maroney, like in every movie she's in, her dad was like a military.
Yes.
Yeah. And she like knows how to handle firearms. Yeah.
What? My dad was a Marine. She's
Yeah.
like blowing. Yeah, she threw did she throw a gas can or was it a propane tank or something? Propane tank, yeah.
Well, it's funny because the store that they got all those weapons from, it was a sporting goods store in the mall called Peck and Paws. and Sam Peckinpah was like this legendary director. He did all these ultra violent movies in the 60s and 70s, most notably The Wild Bunch. And that shot where like the 3 teens are walking with
three
like,
dudes.
the 3 dudes with the automatic weapons and stuff, like that's like a direct like kind of homage to Peckinpah's Wild Bunch, because like there was like just a scene of guys with guns walking in slow
I was
motion.
just so happy to see just a dedicated store to just weapons. It was amazing.
Yeah.
That was
military
That was
grade.
definitely an 80s
military grade
trope.
weapons. And that was my favorite part. And also the head explosion was what, like, I really didn't know what to expect. Like, okay, these kids are going to die. Well, blah, 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 whatever. I didn't really think they were going to go that far. They legit, like, just exploded. Like Raiders of the Lost Ark, exploding head. I'm like, all right, okay.
It just looked like somebody put an M80 in a grapefruit.
Yeah, that was more or less what it was.
Yeah.
But some creative editing.
I do love, like, in regards to the head explosion, like, it's just like you said, like, it looks like a fruit exploding.
Yeah.
But then there's like a squirt of ketchup on the
Oh, my
window.
God.
But then later, when the robot busts through that same window, it looks like a fucking Charles Manson massacre happened against that window. Like, the whole thing is covered in blood.
Yeah. It's creative editing.
Yeah.
It was great.
I mean, it makes you wonder, how much blood is really in your head?
I don't know. Your brain weighs 3 pounds, but that's not filled with
It's all
blood.
gray matter.
6 pounds,
Yeah.
right?
I thought it was 3
Oh, it was
pounds.
8
Well,
pounds.
your brain wears 6 pounds. Mine weighs about 2.5. All right. And I got the biggest head at the table.
All right, Vader, what's your favorite part of this movie?
Oh, it's easy. There's boobs. That's
80s tits.
my 1 star out of 5 is only because there's a half a second of boobs.
There's like this orgy scene where they're all in the same room having sex.
It's like the
I was
most
just going
awkward
to talk
orgy.
about that. Yeah.
They're all like within 8 feet of each other, just
What,
banging.
you guys never went to parties like that?
No, I didn't.
That's what we all did. We had sex in furniture stores.
I wasn't
Yeah.
old enough to go to parties in the 80s. Yeah. Jude, why don't you fill us in on that orgy scene?
Well, in the 80s, I used to pretend that I was older than I was. And yeah, we used to just kick it in furniture stores. And
Yeah, it takes place in a furniture store, and these people are literally having sex in like the
Yeah.
display beds
yeah.
of the store.
Yeah. There's a
they're having
couple
a
of,
party.
Except for the nerdy couple. The
Yeah.
nerdy couple was watching a movie, which I guess
but
that
they
would-
did make out.
They did.
Yeah.
But that would technically be us, right?
Yeah, but-
We'd be the nerds in that group. We'd
Notice
be the
how
ones-
the virgins were the ones who survived.
When you said that would be us, you like eyeballed me. And I was like, wait, what?
No, like the nerds. The nerds watching the movie. Everybody else is like getting down.
I like how the main guy's name was Ferdy.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Ferdy.
Jude, what's your favorite part of this movie?
I do love the robot eyeballing.
Oh yeah.
I do love the head explosion. And you guys already talked about the group orgy. I mean, I love this movie. Like I said earlier, it's just like got everything that I love in the genre that I love. It's got like, it's super campy. It's got bad dialogue. It's got the horror. It's got the bad hair. Everybody's hair looked exactly the same.
You know, usually 80s hair is really cool to me. That's when I grew up. But man, this movie, they had every bad 80s haircut in that movie. The big super feather job on the guys,
Yeah.
and it's just like the pseudo mullet feathered look, and this is like, oh god,
All
Yeah.
the guys had the same hair.
yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
Pseudo feathered mullet. look.
Pseudo feathered mullet.
The
Yes.
obnoxious gum chewing
It was
while
like-
he's having sex.
Yeah, it was like Jean-Claude Van Damme's mullet in Time Cop,
Yeah.
except all the guys had it.
Oh no,
Yes.
but there was
With
this-
extra conditioner.
Yeah,
Yes. A little bit fluffier.
I'd
A
also
little bit
like
fluffier.
to point out, just to expand on Jude's point, every one of the movies that we watched this week had the most obnoxious gum chewing.
Yes.
Oh,
That is what all three, like it connects all three movies, is the obnoxious gum chewing.
Yeah.
wow. What a theme.
Yeah.
All right, Kadish, what's your favorite part of this movie?
I think my favorite part of this movie is just like the random side characters that we see. Because like we already talked a little bit about the cameos, like Dick Miller and the Blands. But there's this one scene at the beginning where they're waitressing at this restaurant, and there's this random guy there who's just like eating in the most disgusting way possible. And then like right before they cut out of the scene, they cut to this guy, and he's got like food all over his face and beard and shirt, and he's just like, "Waitress, more butter."
And then they cut to the next scene
Yeah,
immediately.
then there's like a smash cut to like the outside of the mall with like lightning. And it was like the most random weird thing where he's just like, "Waitress, more butter," as he's like stuffing food into his mouth. And I'm like, who eats like that in a public?
I forgot about
And then, like before that happens, they introduce this character. They just kind of like pan to him really quickly, and the two waitresses like roll their eyes at each other, and they're like, "Ugh, he's always trying to get some skin. Just like give him his food at a distance, if you know what I mean." Like he's so gross, and also he's a groper. And then he's like, "Waitress, more butter."
And it's such an awkward, like not only shot, but like edit. You know, it just it makes it stand out way more than it should.
I hope we go out to eat sometime all together. Because I'm doing it. So, Waitress, more butter.
You gotta make sure to have food just all up in your
And then
beard.
when she brings it, ask her if she's ever been with a big man.
All right, guys, that's it for Chopping Mall 1986.
Butter.
It's on Amazon Prime. If you'd like to check it out for yourself and take a gander at what we were talking about, it's there available to you. Next up, I want
You're just like, yeah, it's there. It's available.
Watch it if you want.
to watch it. It's free. I don't know.
If you're at the end of your rope and you don't really have anything else to live for.
You know, ironically, I didn't think this movie was as bad as I was expecting it to be.
Oh, it was bad.
I mean, it's pretty bad, but like it actually had a story to it. Like it was something that like amongst all the bad movies I've seen, this is like one of the better bad movies.
Aw,
It was better than
thanks,
Night of the
babe.
Comet. I'll give it that. Really?
I think
Oh,
so
I
too.
enjoyed
You
Night of the Comet
son of a
more.
bitch. You always try to get me to fight you, Vader. I swear.